The crystal towers of Velthros Prime had stood for 10,000 years, gleaming under the light of their ancient sun. The Velthrons who lived there were a peaceful people, their bodies made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light when they spoke. They had never known war. They had never needed weapons. For as long as their history recorded, they lived in harmony with themselves and the few other species they had met among the stars. That peace ended 3 weeks ago. Shimmerlight stood in the communications center, her crystalline form flickering with distress as she watched the display screens. Another colony world had gone silent. That made 7 worlds lost in less than a month. 7 worlds, billions of lives, all consumed by the Kravik swarm. The Kravik were like nothing the Velthrons had ever encountered. They were not peaceful explorers or curious neighbors. They were hunters, feeders, a hive-mind species that traveled from star to star, consuming everything in their path. They took the minerals from planets, the water from oceans, the very atmosphere from the sky, and they took the people too, breaking them down into raw material for more Kravik soldiers. Brightvane, the chief coordinator of Velthros Prime, entered the room. His light was dim with exhaustion. "How long until they reach our homeworld?" he asked quietly. Shimmerlight checked her instruments. 2 days. Maybe 3 if we're lucky. And our defenses? We have none that matter. Shimmerlight's light flickered with something close to despair. Our shields were designed to stop asteroids and cosmic radiation. Not weapons. Not this. Brightvane moved to the window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Kravik mothership was coming. Their sensors had detected it an hour ago. It was massive. Larger than anything the Velthrons had ever built. A living mountain of armor and weapons, heading straight for them. "We sent messages to the Galactic Council," Brightvane said, "asking for help." "Reber. They said they would send observers," Shimmerlight replied bitterly. "Observers. To watch us die and record it for their archives." The Velthrons had been part of the Galactic Council for 300 years. They paid their dues, followed the laws, participated in cultural exchanges. But the Council moved slowly, required votes and committees and procedures. By the time they organized a rescue fleet, there would be nothing left to rescue. Brightvane made a decision. "Activate the emergency beacon." Shimmerlight turned to him, surprised. "The ancient one? We don't even know if it still works. It's older than our civilization. It was left by someone," Brightvane said. "Someone who thought we might need help one day." "Try it." Shimmerlight moved to a terminal in the corner of the room, one covered in dust. The emergency beacon system was ancient technology, found buried in ruins when the Velthrons first developed spaceflight. They had studied it, powered it up, but never used it. It broadcast using quantum entanglement, a method that could reach across incredible distances instantly. But the Velthrons had no idea where the signal would go. She activated the system. The old machine hummed to life, its lights blinking in patterns that seemed almost random. Then, it began transmitting. The message was simple. Shimmerlight had recorded it herself. "Help. We are dying. Coordinates attached. Please, anyone who receives this, we need help." The signal went out into the universe, spreading through quantum channels that stretched across the galaxy and beyond. It passed through council space, through empty systems, through regions marked on ancient star charts with warnings in dead languages. Warnings that said, "Danger, Deathworld species, do not approach, do not contact." The signal kept going, 40,000 light-years away, in a small monitoring station on the edge of human space. A tired young woman named Nari was drinking her 5th cup of coffee. Her shift was almost over. She was monitoring deep space communications, a job that was usually boring. Space was big and empty, and most of the time, her instruments picked up nothing but cosmic background radiation. Then her screen lit up. Nari sat up straight, spilling coffee on her uniform. The signal was strong, clear, and definitely not natural. She ran it through the computer's translation program. The message appeared on her screen in Korean, translated from a language the computer had never seen before. Help. We are dying. Nari's hands shook as she hit the emergency call button. Commander Taeho. You need to see this right now. Commander Taeho arrived in the monitoring room 3 minutes later, still pulling on his uniform jacket. He was a veteran of the Human Defense Force, a man who had seen combat in the border wars. He looked at the signal on Nari's screen, and his expression went serious. Play it again, he ordered. They listened to the message 3 times. The coordinates pointed to a location far outside human space, in a region they had never explored. The message was genuine. Someone out there was dying and had asked for help. Taeho pulled up the star charts. The location was 40,000 light-years away. With their faster-than-light drives, they could reach it in 3 days. He checked the military database, looking for information about the species that sent the signal. The database showed very little. The Velthrons were listed as a Level 2 civilization, peaceful and scientific. They had no military to speak of. The hostile force attacking them was identified as the Kravik Swarm, a species that had destroyed dozens of civilizations over the past 1,000 years. They're asking for help, Nari said quietly. We have to do something. Taeho nodded slowly. He knew what headquarters would say. The Velthrons were not allies. They were not even neighbors. Humanity had been isolated by the Galactic Council years ago, quarantined because the other species found them too violent, too dangerous. The Council had made it clear. Humans were not welcome in galactic society, but someone had sent a distress signal. Someone was dying. Taeho made his decision. He opened a priority channel to Fleet Command. This is Commander Taeho, at Jangsong Outpost. I am requesting immediate activation of the 7th Fleet. We have received a genuine distress call from a civilian population under attack. The response came back within the hour. Fleet Admiral Jinwoo himself gave the order. Permission granted. The 7th Fleet will deploy immediately. Rules of engagement. Protect the civilian population by any means necessary. Show them what humans do. When someone asks for help, on Velthros Prime, Shimmerlight and Brightvane waited. Their world's defenses were failing. Evacuation ships were overloaded with refugees. The Kravik mothership had entered their star system and was approaching the planet. Brightvane stood in the command center, watching their orbital sensors. No one is coming, he said quietly. We die alone. Shimmerlight didn't answer. She was thinking about the old beacon, about the message they had sent into the void. She wondered if anyone had heard it at all. Above them, the Kravik mothership blotted out the stars. The Kravik mothership hung in the sky above Velthros Prime like a nightmare made real. It was massive, easily the size of a small moon, its surface covered in organic armor that pulsed with diseased light. Smaller ships swarmed around it like insects, each one carrying weapons designed to break apart cities and harvest the pieces. Shimmerlight watched from the command center as the first attack began. Kravik biomissiles struck the planetary shields, each impact sending shockwaves through the protective barrier. The shields were never designed for war. They were holding, but not for long. Evacuation progress? Brightvane asked, his crystalline body dim with exhaustion. 40%, someone reported. The ships are overloaded. We don't have enough vessels for everyone. Brightvane closed his eyes. 3 billion Velthrons lived on the homeworld. They could save maybe 1 billion, if they had time. But time was something they didn't have. The shields are at 60%, another technician called out. They won't last another hour. Shimmerlight looked at her coordinator. I'm sorry we couldn't do more. When they'd rest, I'm Meng. Brightvane reached out and touched her arm, a gesture of comfort among their people. You did everything possible. We all did. Then every alarm in the command center started screaming at once. What now? Brightvane demanded, moving to the main display. The technician at the sensor station was staring at his screen, his light flickering in confusion. Sir, I'm detecting spatial rifts. Hundreds of them. All around the planet. Kravik reinforcements? Shimmerlight asked, her voice hollow. No, sir. These signatures are different. These are artificial wormholes. Using technology I've never seen before. On the main display, the view switched to show space around their planet. Shimmerlight felt her entire being freeze as she watched tears in reality open up one after another. 743 rifts, to be exact. Each one glowing with strange energy. And then something came through. The ships that emerged were like nothing the Velthrons had ever seen. They were massive, angular, covered in armor that looked like it could withstand a star's explosion. The smallest vessels were the size of city blocks. The largest were beyond comprehension, stretching 8 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapons that made the Kravik mothership's arsenal look primitive. Contact from the unknown fleet, the communications officer said, his voice shaking. Put it through, Brightvane ordered. A face appeared on the screen. It was an alien face, but not like anything in the Council database. The being had smooth skin, 2 eyes that seemed to see everything, and a calm expression that somehow made Shimmerlight feel both terrified and safe at the same time. The being spoke, and the computer translated his words perfectly. Attention, unknown hostiles. You are attacking a civilization under human protection. You have 30 seconds to withdraw. This is your only warning. The voice was calm, professional, almost friendly, but there was something underneath it. Something cold and absolutely certain. Human, Brightvane whispered. I've never heard of humans. The Kravik, it seemed, hadn't either. Their response was immediate and aggressive. The mothership turned to face the new arrivals, and every Kravik vessel in the system opened fire at once. Bioplasma and acid bombs and kinetic spikes, everything they had, launched toward the human fleet. The human ships didn't even bother with evasive maneuvers. What happened next would be talked about in Velthron history for generations. The human weapons fired. But they weren't energy beams or plasma bolts like the Velthrons expected. They were solid metal, huge slugs of tungsten and depleted uranium, moving so fast they seemed to simply appear inside Kravik ships. The impact of a single round was like a small nuclear explosion. The Kravik bioarmor, evolved over millions of years to resist energy weapons, might as well have been paper. Kravik ships died by the dozens, then by the hundreds. Their organic hulls ruptured, spilling atmosphere and biomass into space. The smaller human ships, which Shimmerlight realized were fighter craft, moved with impossible speed and agility. They dodged Kravik fire with ease, their weapons carving through enemy ships like knives through water. How are they moving like that? A technician whispered. The G-forces should kill the pilots, but the human pilots didn't die. They pushed their small ships through maneuvers that would have turned any Velthron into powder, pulling turns that exceeded 12 times the force of gravity. Later, Shimmerlight would learn that humans came from a heavy gravity world, that their bodies were dense with muscle and reinforced with bones designed to withstand incredible stress. Later, she would learn that human pilots used neural implants to react faster than conscious thought. Now, she just watched in awe. The Kravik mothership, realizing it was in serious danger, tried to retreat. It was too late. A human dreadnought, a massive vessel called Daejung's Pride, moved into position. From its bow, a single weapon fired. The projectile was traveling at 90% the speed of light. When it hit the Kravik mothership, the explosion lit up the entire star system. 8 minutes after the humans arrived, it was over. The Kravik fleet was gone. Not defeated, not scattered. Gone. Atomized. Erased from existence. The human commander's face appeared on the screen again. He was smiling now. A warm expression that didn't match the violence his fleet had just unleashed. Velthron Command. This is Fleet Admiral Jinwoo of the Human Defense Force. Hostile forces have been neutralized. We're beginning landing operations to provide medical aid and supplies. Please remain calm. You're safe now. Brightvane found his voice after a long moment. Who are you? What are you? Jinwoo's smile widened slightly. We're humans, from a planet called Earth. We received your distress call. Sorry, it took us 3 days to get here. We came as fast as we could. 3 days? Shimmerlight repeated. You traveled 40,000 light-years in 3 days? Our FTL drives are pretty good, Jinwoo said modestly. We're sending down medical teams now. Your people were exposed to Kravik biotoxins. We have the cure. May we have permission to land? Brightvane could only nod. The human ships began landing operations. Huge transport vessels descended through the atmosphere, their engines roaring with power. Apris, on first. They landed in designated areas outside the major cities, and their cargo ramps opened to reveal soldiers in powered armor. Shimmerlight went to meet them personally. She stood at the landing site, watching as the first human soldiers stepped onto Velthron soil. They were tall, taller than any Velthron, and their armor made them look even larger. The armor itself was a work of art and terror combined. Painted in dark colors and covered with equipment she couldn't identify, one of the soldiers approached her. The helmet retracted, folding back into the armor's collar, and Shimmerlight got her first clear look at a human face. The soldier was female, with dark hair tied back and eyes that were alert and intelligent. She smiled, and the expression was genuine and warm. Hello, the human said. I'm Captain Haewon. I'm in command of the ground forces. You must be Shimmerlight. The Admiral told us you were the one who sent the distress signal. Shimmerlight managed to nod. Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming. We thought no one would answer. Haewon's expression softened. We always answer. That's what humans do. She turned and gestured to the other soldiers. We've brought medical supplies, food, construction equipment, and enough personnel to help with rescue and rebuilding. Where do you need us most? As Shimmerlight began coordinating with the human forces, she noticed something. The humans moved with purpose and efficiency, but they were also gentle with the Velthron civilians. They helped evacuate damaged buildings, treated wounded with care, and spoke in calm voices even when the Velthrons panicked. These beings had just destroyed an entire fleet in minutes. They had weapons that could crack planets. But now they were handing out blankets to frightened children and helping elderly Velthrons to safety. Shimmerlight didn't understand humans yet, but she was beginning to think she wanted to. The human medical camp was set up within hours of landing. Shimmerlight walked through it, watching as human medics worked on Velthron patients with careful precision. The contrast was striking. The humans wore simple medical uniforms now instead of their terrifying combat armor. But she could still see the difference between their species. Humans were solid. That was the word that kept coming to Shimmerlight's mind. Where Velthrans were crystalline and delicate, humans were dense with muscle and heavy bone. They moved with a controlled power that suggested they could be gentle or violent as the situation required. A young human medic named Young Jae approached her. He was carrying several containers of medicine. Shimmerlight? I wanted to update you on the patients. The Kravik biotoxins were nasty, but we've synthesized a cure. Everyone who was exposed should make a full recovery. Ocher. That fast? Shimmerlight asked, amazed. Our doctors spent weeks trying to develop a treatment. Young Jae shrugged. Our immune systems are pretty aggressive. We've had to deal with some really nasty diseases on Earth. Our immune system are means. Once we analyze the toxin, our computers could create a cure based on our own antibody templates. He paused, then added carefully. Earth is what we call a Class 1-2, Death World. We're very good at not dying. Death World? Shimmerlight had never heard the term. I'll let the Admiral explain that, Young Jae said with a slight smile. He's been wanting to talk to you anyway. He's up in the command ship, if you want to visit. An hour later, Shimmerlight found herself aboard the human flagship. The ship's interior was utilitarian, but impressive. Every surface seemed to serve a purpose. The corridors were wide enough for soldiers in full armor to move quickly. The walls had panels that could become screens or weapon racks. Everything was designed for efficiency and survival. Admiral Jin Woo met her in what he called the observation deck, a room with large windows looking out at Velthros Prime below. The Admiral was older than most of the soldiers she'd met, with gray hair and a face marked by experience. But his eyes were sharp and kind. "Shimmerlight," he said, offering her a chair. "Thank you for coming. I thought we should talk. You probably have questions." "So many questions," Shimmerlight admitted. She sat down, her crystalline form reflecting the starlight from the windows. Starting with the most important one. Why did you come? You traveled across the galaxy to save people you'd never met. Why? Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. That's complicated. Let me start with some history. 50 years ago, humans achieved faster than light travel. We were excited. We thought we'd meet other species, make friends, join the galactic community. And we did meet others. We found the Galactic Council. "I know of the Council," Shimmerlight said. "We're members." "Right. Well, the Council took one look at humanity and decided we were too dangerous. They saw our history, our wars, our weapons. They saw a species that had survived everything our homeworld threw at us and came out stronger. They quarantined us, told us we weren't welcome in galactic society." Jinwoo's expression was calm, but Shimmerlight could hear the old hurt in his voice. "They called us Deathworlders." "Do you know what that means?" Shimmerlight shook her head. "Most species in the galaxy evolved on worlds like yours. Mild climates, stable ecosystems, few natural disasters. Class 1 or 2 worlds. Humans evolved on Earth, a Class 12 death world." Jinwoo pulled up a holographic display. "Let me show you." The display showed a blue and green planet, beautiful from space. Then, it zoomed in, and Shimmerlight's light flickered with shock. "Earth has weather systems that generate winds strong enough to destroy cities," Jinwoo explained. "We call them hurricanes and tornadoes. The planet has zones where the ground literally shakes and splits open, swallowing buildings. We call those earthquakes. There are mountains that explode with liquid rock. Volcanoes. The oceans have waves 10 meters high during storms." The images continued. Shimmerlight saw creatures with massive teeth and claws, tiny organisms that could kill with a single bite, plants covered in poison. Everything on Earth evolved to survive in an environment that was constantly trying to kill it, Jinwoo said. Predators evolved to hunt. Prey evolved to escape. Humans evolved to outlast everything. We're persistence hunters. We chase our prey until it collapses from exhaustion. We can run for hours without stopping. We can survive in nearly any climate. We heal from injuries that would kill most species. "And your weapons," Shimmerlight whispered. "The way you fight." "We've been fighting since we learned to pick up sticks and stones," Jinwoo admitted. "We've had wars that killed millions. We created weapons that could destroy our entire planet. Nuclear bombs, biological weapons, things that still give us nightmares." He looked directly at her. "The Council saw all of this and decided we were monsters. But you're not," Shimmerlight said quietly. "You saved us." Jinwoo smiled. "That's the part the Council didn't understand. Yes, humans know how to fight. We're good at it because we had to be to survive. But we also know why we fight. We fight to protect. We fight for our pack, our tribe, our family. When you sent that distress call, you became part of our pack. And humans never abandon their pack." Shimmerlight was beginning to understand. "So you came, even though the Council told you not to." "The Council doesn't get to tell us who we can help," Jinwoo said firmly. "They isolated us. Fine. But they don't get to stop us from doing what's right. You called for help. We answered. It's that simple." Over the next few days, Shimmerlight spent more time with the humans. She learned about their culture, their history, their values. She met soldiers like Captain HFY, who could tear apart a tank with her powered armor, but spent her free time helping Velthron children build toys. She met engineers who could design weapons systems, but chose to repair damaged buildings instead. She met a fighter pilot named Miran, who explained how human neural implants worked. "We wire our brains directly into our ships," Miran said cheerfully. "The ship becomes an extension of our body. That's how we pull those high G turns. Our bodies are tough enough to survive it, and our implants let us react faster than conscious thought." "Doesn't that hurt?" Shimmerlight asked. "Like hell," Miran admitted. "But you get used to it. Besides, the alternative is letting enemies hurt our friends. I'll take the pain." Shimmerlight also learned about Earth's diversity. Humans came in different colors, different cultures, different beliefs. They spoke hundreds of languages. Jinwoo and his crew had names from a place called Korea. Other humans had names from places called Nigeria, Mexico, India, Brazil. They all looked slightly different, but they all shared the same core values. Protect the weak, keep your promises, never give up. One evening, Brightvein joined Shimmerlight on the observation deck. They watched the human ships in orbit, powerful and vigilant. "I've been studying their database," Brightvein said, "learning about Earth. Did you know they survived 12 mass extinction events? 12 times, almost everything on their planet died, and humans' ancestors survived. They're survivors," Shimmerlight agreed. "But they're more than that. They're protectors. The Council will not be happy about this," Brightvein warned. Humans violated the quarantine. They deployed military force in Council space. "Let the Council complain," Shimmerlight said, her light flashing with determination. "The humans saved our entire species. I don't care what the Council says." As if summoning them by speaking their name, an alert sounded. It was a Council diplomatic vessel, and they were demanding to speak with the Velthron leadership and the human fleet commander. Jinwoo appeared on the communication screen, looking amused. "Looks like we're about to have company. This should be interesting." "Looks?" Shimmerlight felt a spark of worry. The Council had rules, regulations, procedures. The humans had broken several laws by coming here. What would happen now? But then she remembered watching the Kravik mothership explode. She remembered human medics working through the night to save Velthron lives. She remembered Jinwoo's words. "You called for help. We answered. R. Actividiot. C. Whatever the Council said, whatever rules they cited, Shimmerlight knew one thing for certain. She trusted the humans more than she trusted the Council, and she suspected she wasn't the only Velthron who felt that way. The Council diplomatic ship was elegant in a way that human vessels were not. Where human ships were built for function and power, the Council ship was built to impress. It gleamed with polished metal and decorative lights. It was also tiny compared to even the smallest human destroyer, a fact that Captain HFY noticed immediately. "Their whole diplomatic ship would fit in our cargo bay," she commented, watching from the orbital defense platform. "And it's barely armed. 3 light pulse cannons. We could sneeze on it, and it would break apart." "Let's not sneeze on the diplomats," Admiral Jinwoo replied dryly from the flagship. "At least, not yet." The Council ship was accompanied by 3 defense frigates, which HFY assumed were meant to look intimidating. They didn't. She'd seen the specifications. Each frigate had shields that could maybe stop a few missiles, and weapons that would take several minutes of sustained fire to damage a human destroyer. The humans had 40 destroyers in orbit. If it came to a fight, it would last about 30 seconds. But Jinwoo had made it clear. No fighting unless absolutely necessary. They were here to help the Velthrans, not start a war with the Council. The Council ambassador requested a meeting on the surface. Brightvein agreed, and preparations were made in the rebuilt Council embassy building. Shimmerlight insisted on being present. She wanted to hear what the Council had to say. The ambassador arrived with an escort of guards. Ambassador Keening Song was a Tidalian, an aquatic species that wore a water-filled suit to survive on land. His voice came through a translator as a series of melodious tones. "I bring greetings from the Galactic Council," he began formally. "Welcome to Velthros Prime, Ambassador," Brightvane replied. "We appreciate your visit." "I wish this were a social call," Keening Song said. His tone turned stern. "The Council has become aware of a serious violation. The quarantined species known as humans have entered Council space with a massive military fleet. This is an act of aggression." 8. Admiral Jin Woo, who was attending via hologram, raised an eyebrow. "Aggression?" "We responded to a distress call." "You were explicitly forbidden from leaving your quarantine zone," Keening Song countered. "The Council made this decision for the safety of all species. Humans are classified as dangerous. Your history of violence, your weapons technology, your warlike nature—" "Our warlike nature saved 3 billion Velthrons from being eaten," Jin Woo interrupted calmly. "Where was the Council when the Kravik attacked?" "The Council was preparing an appropriate response." "How long would that have taken?" Shimmerlight spoke up, surprising everyone. "How many committees and votes and procedures would you have needed? The Kravik would have consumed our entire species before you finished debating." Keening Song turned to her. "The Council has protocols for a reason. We cannot simply send military forces without proper authorization. It takes time. Time the Velthrons didn't have," Jinwoo said. "We got their distress signal. We came. We helped. If that's a crime, then I'm guilty, and I don't care." The tension in the room was thick. Brightvane spoke carefully. "Ambassador, we understand the Council's concerns, but the humans saved us. They asked for nothing in return. They've been helping rebuild our cities, treating our wounded, protecting us from further attack. Whatever laws they broke, they did it to save lives. The law exists to protect everyone," Keening Song insisted. "If we allow exceptions, chaos follows. The humans must withdraw immediately, or face sanctions. And the Velthrons must refuse their assistance." Shimmerlight felt her light flash with anger. "You want us to tell them to leave? To send away the only people who helped us?" "It is for the greater good," the ambassador said. "Whose good?" Brightvane asked quietly. "Not ours." Before the argument could continue, alarms started blaring. A human officer appeared on the screens. "Admiral, we have incoming signatures. Multiple hyperspace exits at the edge of the system. It's the Kravik. A lot of them." Jin Woo's expression hardened. "How many?" "Sensors are still counting, sir. Initial estimate, 10,000 ships." The room went silent. 10,000 Kravik vessels. The fleet they'd destroyed was apparently just a scouting force. Now, the real Kravik Armada had arrived. Keening Song's translator made a sound of distress. 10,000 ships? That's impossible to stop. We must evacuate immediately. "Evacuate to where?" Shimmerlight demanded. "The Kravik will chase us anywhere we go. We need to fight. The Council forces cannot engage an enemy of that size," Keening Song said. "Maybe not by the Council," Jinwoo said. His hologram showed him standing on the bridge of his flagship. And behind him, Shimmerlight could see human officers moving with practiced efficiency. "But we're not the Council. We're not leaving." "You cannot be serious," Keening Song said. 10,000 ships against your fleet? You'll be destroyed. Maybe, Jinwoo admitted. But we're not abandoning our friends. Captain Hay 1. Activate all defense platforms. Contact the 3rd, 8th, and 12th fleets. Tell them we need immediate reinforcement. And someone wake up the captain of the Daejung's fist. We're going to need the big guns. Hay 1 grinned. Yes, sir. Shall I tell the other fleets to hurry? Tell them if they're late, we're starting without them. More human ships began arriving through spatial rifts. Shimmerlight watched the displays as the human fleet grew. 3,000 warships, 40,000 fighter craft, hundreds of support vessels. It was the largest military force the Velthrons had ever seen. And still, it seemed small compared to 10,000 Kravik bioships. Ambassador Keening Song watched the displays with what seemed like horror. "This is madness. You'll all die." "For what?" "For strangers you barely know." Jinwoo looked at Brightvane and Shimmerlight. "They're not strangers anymore. They're friends. And humans don't abandon their friends. Not ever." "I must contact the council," Keening Song said. "They need to see this. They need to understand what you're doing." "Go ahead and record it," Jinwoo said. "In fact, I encourage it. Let the council see what happens when you threaten people under human protection." Jin. 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 The Kravik fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague. 10,000 bioships, each one pulsing with diseased light. They formed up in attack formations, spreading out to surround the planet. At the center of the formation was something massive, larger even than the mothership they'd destroyed, the Kravik Overmind's personal command vessel, a living fortress that had destroyed 47 civilizations. The Kravik broadcast a simple message: "Biomass detected. Feeding begins." Jinwoo stood on his bridge, watching the enemy fleet approach. His officers waited for orders. The entire human fleet was ready. Weapons armed. Shields at maximum. 3,000 ships against 10,000. Bad odds by any calculation. But humans were good at bad odds. "All ships," Jinwoo broadcast. "This is Fleet Admiral Jinwoo. The enemy wants to destroy our friends. They want to consume an entire civilization. They think they can win because they have numbers. They're about to learn a valuable lesson about fighting Deathworlders." He paused. "Rules of engagement. Total war. No mercy. No retreat. Show them why you don't threaten a human's pack. All ships, weapons free. Let's go to work." The human fleet surged forward, and the Battle of Velthros Prime began. On the surface, Shimmerlight stood with Brightvane, watching through the embassy's windows as light filled the sky. The battle had started. Ambassador Keening Song was recording everything, sending it back to the council in real time. His translator was making sounds of distress. "They're really doing it. They're fighting 10,000 ships to protect you." "Yes," Shimmerlight said quietly. "They are. But why?" the ambassador asked. "What do they gain from this?" Shimmerlight thought about the past few days. About human medics working through exhaustion to save Velthron patients. About soldiers helping rebuild homes. About Jinwoo's words. "You called for help," we answered. "They gain friends," she said finally. "And for humans, that's everything." The space around Velthros Prime turned into a storm of fire and violence. The Kravik fleet advanced in waves, their bioships launching swarms of projectiles and acid bombs. The human fleet met them head-on, and the difference in tactics was immediately clear. The Kravik fought like animals, aggressive and overwhelming, relying on numbers to crush their enemies. The humans fought like chess masters, every move calculated and precise. "Artillery platforms, you are weapons-free," Admiral Jinwoo ordered calmly. "Target the command ships. Drone swarms, execute pattern Delta 7. Fighter wings. Clear a path for the destroyers." From 10 million kilometers away, the human artillery platforms opened fire. They launched tungsten rods, each one moving at relativistic speeds. The rods were simple chunks of metal, but at 90% of light speed, they hit with the force of nuclear bombs. Kravik command ships exploded in brilliant flashes as the rounds punched through them. The Kravik responded by sending forward their fighter swarms, millions of small biocraft that flew in chaotic patterns. They expected to overwhelm the human defenses with sheer numbers. They met the drone swarms instead. Human drones were AI-controlled missiles, each one programmed with tactics developed from thousands of years of warfare. They flew in perfect coordination, each drone supporting the others. When a Kravik biofighter tried to dodge, it flew into the path of another drone. When they tried to scatter, the drones predicted their movements and were waiting. Behind the drones came the human fighter wings. Pilot Miran was among them, her neural implants linking her consciousness directly to her fighter. She could feel the ship as an extension of her body, reacting to threats faster than thought. "Blue Squadron, on me," she called out. "We've got a cluster of heavy fighters at Sector 7. Let's clear them out." Her squadron followed, 12 fighters moving in perfect formation. The Kravik heavies fired bioplasma, but the human fighters jinked and rolled, dodging with moves that would have crushed a normal pilot. Miran pulled a 12G turn, her body held together by the fighter's inertial dampeners and her own dense skeleton. Her targeting computer locked on, and she fired. The human weapons were simple but effective. Kinetic rounds and explosive missiles. No fancy energy weapons that could be absorbed or deflected. Just solid metal, moving very fast. The Kravik heavy fighters came apart like wet paper. "That's 12 confirmed kills," Miran reported, grinning despite the pain in her body. "Blue Squadron is ready for more." On the flagship, Jin Woo watched the battle displays. The Kravik were learning that numbers didn't matter against superior tactics. But they weren't retreating. The Overmind, controlling the fleet from its massive command vessel, was driving them forward with mindless determination. "They're not running," Captain Haewon observed from her position on the orbital platform. "They're going to keep coming until we destroy every ship." "Then that's what we'll do," Jinwoo said. "Have the battle cruisers form up in defensive shell formation. Let the Kravik come to us. And someone find me that Overmind ship. Cut off the head, and the body dies." The human capital ships moved into position, creating a defensive sphere around Velthros Prime. The Kravik fleet crashed against it like waves against a seawall. For every human ship, there were more than 3 Kravik vessels. But the humans had something the Kravik didn't. 3,000 years of recorded military history, strategies from ancient Earth, tactics proven in countless wars. The humans implemented something called Protocol Thermopylae. It was named after an ancient battle, where a small force held off a massive army in a narrow pass. The human fleet created artificial choke points using their formation, forcing the Kravik to attack from limited angles. Every Kravik ship that entered the kill zone was hit by fire from multiple human vessels. The Kravik lost 3,000 ships in the first hour. On the surface, Shimmerlight and Brightvein watched the battle through the embassy's enhanced viewers. Ambassador Keening Song stood with them, still recording everything for the council. His translator was making continuous sounds of shock. "This is impossible," he kept saying. "They should be overwhelmed. They should be dying. Look at how they fight," Brightvein said quietly. "Every move has a purpose. Every shot is calculated. They're not just shooting randomly. They're executing a strategy." "But where did they learn this?" Keening Song asked. "How does a species develop such advanced military tactics?" "From necessity," Shimmerlight said. "Admiral Jinwoo told me. On Earth, they fought each other for thousands of years. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation. They learned warfare because they had to. And now, they're using that knowledge to protect us." In space, the battle was reaching its critical point. The humans had destroyed 6,000 Kravik ships, but their own forces were starting to tire. Human vessels could take more damage than Kravik bioships, but they weren't invincible. Several destroyers had been lost, and even some of the larger battlecruisers were showing damage. "Admiral, we've located the Overmind vessel," a sensor officer reported. "It's at the center of their formation. Protected by 2,000 ships." Jin Woo studied the display. The Overmind's ship was massive, easily 15 kilometers long. It was the heart of the Kravik swarm. Destroy it, and the rest would become disorganized and easy to eliminate. But getting to it meant punching through 2,000 enemy ships. "Contact the Daejung's fist," Jinwoo ordered. "Tell Commander Bo-Ra it's time to use the main gun." The Daejung's fist was humanity's newest and most powerful dreadnought. At 15 kilometers long, it was the size of a city, and along its entire spine ran a single weapon. A mass driver that could fire a projectile at 95% light speed. Commander Bo-Ra's voice came through the communication system. "The fist is ready, Admiral. We need a clear shot at the target." "No. All ships," Jinwoo broadcast. "Execute Omega formation. Clear a path for the fist. I don't care how many Kravik ships are in the way, make a corridor." Now, the human fleet reorganized with practiced precision. Destroyers and battlecruisers concentrated their fire, carving a lane through the Kravik formation. Fighter wings dove in, drawing enemy fire away from the big ships. Hundreds of human vessels worked together, with perfect coordination. The Kravik tried to close the gap, sending more ships to block the path. But the humans had momentum now. Medic Young Jae, now manning a defense turret on one of the medical ships, fired at Kravik fighters with grim determination. "Sorry about the Hippocratic Oath," he muttered. "But you're threatening my patience." The path cleared. The Daejung's fist moved into position, its massive bulk sliding through space. The spinal mass driver began charging, drawing power from the ship's multiple fusion reactors. "Weapon charged," Bo-Ra reported. "Target locked. Firing." The mass driver released its payload. A solid tungsten rod, 3 meters in diameter and 20 meters long, accelerated down the 15-kilometer barrel. By the time it left the ship, it was moving at 95% of the speed of light. At that velocity, the projectile hit with the force of several nuclear weapons. But the effect was even more dramatic. The relativistic impact released a pulse of radiation and energy that made the vacuum of space itself seem to burn. The overmined ship simply ceased to exist. One moment, it was there. A massive biofortress. The next moment, there was only an expanding sphere of superheated plasma and debris. The Kravik fleet stopped moving. Without the overmind to direct them, the individual ships lost coordination. Some tried to retreat. Others simply drifted, their biosystems shutting down. The hive mind was broken, and the Kravik swarm died with it. Human forces moved through the remaining ships methodically, eliminating those that still posed a threat and forcing the others to flee. 6 hours after it began, the Battle of Velthros Prime was over. The human fleet had lost 243 crew members. Each loss was recorded, each name preserved. The Kravik fleet was completely destroyed. On the surface, Shimmerlight watched as the human ships began recovery operations. Medical vessels were already treating wounded crews. Salvage ships were collecting debris, and the warships remained on station, their weapons still active, watching for any remaining threats. Ambassador Keening's song was silent, his recorder still running. Finally, he spoke. "I need to return to the council. They must see this recording. They must understand what happened here." "What will you tell them?" Brightvane asked. "The truth," Keening's song said quietly. "That the humans crossed 40,000 light years to save strangers. That they faced impossible odds to protect a species they'd never met. That they lost their own people to defend yours." He paused. "The council was wrong about humans. We called them dangerous, and they are. But not to their friends." A week later, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. They watched the recording of the battle. They heard Shimmerlight's testimony about how humans had saved the Velthrons. They read reports from 30 other species who had been monitoring the situation and were impressed by humanity's actions. The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would be granted probationary membership in the Galactic Council. There were conditions. Humans would serve as peacekeepers, responding to distress calls from any species that needed help. They would be monitored, evaluated, and judged by their actions. Jinwoo accepted the terms with a smile. We were doing that anyway, he told the council. But it's nice to have your permission. On Velthros Prime, a memorial was built for the 243 humans who died protecting a world they'd never seen before. Each name was carved in crystal, lit from within so it would glow eternally. Shimmerlight stood before it with Nari, the communications officer who had first received the distress signal. Your people gave their lives for us, Shimmerlight said softly. We barely knew each other. That's what makes it important, Nari replied. You didn't have to know us. You just had to need help. That was enough. Admiral Jinwoo was preparing to leave with his fleet, but he left behind a garrison of ships and volunteers to help with reconstruction. As his flagship prepared to depart, Brightvane asked him, Will we see you again? 1. You're under human protection now, Jinwoo said with certainty. Permanently. If anyone threatens you, just send a signal. We'll come running. That's a promise. The human fleet departed through spatial rifts, leaving behind a grateful species and a changed galaxy. Word of the Battle of Velthros Prime spread through Council space. Other species began to reconsider their view of humanity, and in the deepest parts of space, hostile species that preyed on the weak received a simple message. Attacking peaceful civilizations had consequences now. The Deathworlders were watching, and they kept their promises.